There is something profoundly democratic about the practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and sharing it with others. It doesn't matter if someone is a scholar or someone who can barely read, if they are wealthy or poor, young or old. The promise of this practice is the same for everyone. This idea that we should share this teaching with all people equally was revolutionary in Nichiren Daishonen's time and remains powerful today. But what makes this approach even more striking is the instruction to share it boldly, even when people don't want to hear it, even when it makes them angry. In the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha teaches that all people have the potential to attain enlightenment. This was a radical departure from earlier Buddhist teachings that suggested only certain people, through many lifetimes of practice, could reach this state. The Lotus Sutra says clearly that everyone possesses Buddha nature. Everyone. Not just the monks who meditate in caves, not just the priests who study sacred texts, but farmers, merchants, women, children, and even those who have committed terrible acts. This universal potential is what makes the Lotus Sutra the supreme teaching, and it's why Nichiren Daishonin devoted his entire life to spreading it. When we talk about bestowing the prophecy of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo on both the wise and ignorant, we're really talking about treating all people as equals in terms of their Buddha nature. The word prophecy here means the promise that by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, anyone can reveal their enlightened state. It's not a future prediction, but a present reality waiting to be awakened. Nichiren Daishonin wrote, "Even a person who has committed the 5 cardinal sins or slandered the correct teaching can become a Buddha through the single character Myo. This single character represents the mystic law, the fundamental rhythm of life itself. If even someone who has committed the worst acts can transform their life through this practice, then surely it works for everyone. But why force people to listen? Why share this teaching even when it angers people?" These questions get to the heart of what compassion really means. Sometimes we think compassion means being soft, agreeable, and never upsetting anyone. But true compassion sometimes requires us to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. A doctor who sees a patient with a serious illness doesn't stay quiet to avoid upsetting them. The doctor speaks clearly about the diagnosis and the treatment needed. In the same way, when we see people suffering, caught in cycles of negativity and pain, we have a responsibility to share what can help them. The Lotus Sutra tells the story of a physician whose children have drunk poison. Some of the children realize the danger and eagerly take the medicine their father offers. Others, their minds confused by the poison, refuse the treatment. They don't believe they're sick, or they don't trust the medicine. The physician must use all his skill and wisdom to help these children, even devising clever means to get them to take the medicine. This story teaches us that sometimes people can't see their own suffering clearly. They've become so used to their pain that they think it's normal. They may get angry when someone suggests there's a better way to live, because change is frightening, and the familiar feels safe. Nichiren Daishonin himself experienced terrible persecution for sharing this teaching. He was exiled twice, nearly executed, and constantly faced threats to his life. In his writing on practicing the Buddha's teachings, he stated, "The sutra says, since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more will this be so after his passing?" He knew that teaching the Lotus Sutra would provoke opposition, yet he continued because he understood something crucial. The value of this teaching is so great that even if people reject it at first, even if they become angry, the seed has been planted. That seed will eventually sprout. This concept of planting seeds is important to understand. When we share Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with others, we're not trying to force them to believe something. We're introducing them to a practice they can test for themselves. The words forcing them to listen don't mean we physically restrain people or harass them endlessly. Rather, it means we speak up courageously and clearly, without apologizing for what we know to be true. In a world where many teachings promise easy solutions or require blind faith, this practice asks only that you try it and see what happens in your own life. The distinction between wise and ignorant in this passage is also worth exploring. what does wisdom really mean? In Buddhist terms, wisdom isn't just about having knowledge or education. True wisdom means understanding the true nature of life, seeing past illusions to recognize what really matters. Someone might have multiple degrees and be considered highly intelligent by society's standards, yet still be ignorant about the fundamental law that governs life. Conversely, someone with little formal education might grasp these principles immediately through their life experience and open heart. Nichiren Daishonin wrote extensively about how both learned and unlearned people can practice effectively. In The Strategy of the Lotus Sutra, he explained, "The heart of the strategy of the Lotus Sutra is that a single moment of life comprising the 3,000 realms is the Buddha who has obtained the truth of the unchanging reality." This passage might sound complex, but its meaning is actually simple. Every moment of our lives contains infinite potential. Whether we understand this concept intellectually or not, when we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we tap into that potential. The practice works regardless of our level of understanding. This is why we share with everyone. A professor of philosophy and a construction worker both face suffering in their lives. They both experience fear, disappointment, joy, and hope. They both want to be happy. The fundamental challenges of human life don't discriminate based on education or social status. So the solution shouldn't either. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is truly democratic because it works based on the action of chanting, not on how well we understand Buddhist theory. But let's return to the question of anger. Why would sharing something good make people angry? There are many reasons. Some people have invested heavily in other beliefs or practices, and suggesting something different can feel like an attack on their identity. Others have been hurt by religion in the past and react defensively to anything that sounds spiritual. Some people are simply comfortable in their suffering and resist change of any kind. And then there are those who feel that this practice sounds too simple, too good to be true, and their skepticism turns to irritation. The Lotus Sutra anticipated this resistance. In the chapter on the teacher of the law, it describes how those who accept and propagate this teaching will face opposition. But it also promises that those who make the effort to share it will develop tremendous strength and courage. This is what we see in the lives of people who practice. They don't become perfect, but they do become stronger, more resilient, and more capable of handling life's challenges. When Nichiren Daishonin talks about bestowing this prophecy on all people, he's expressing ultimate respect for human potential. He's saying that no one is beyond hope, no one is too far gone, and no one is unworthy of happiness. This radical inclusivity was dangerous in his time because it challenged the established power structures. If everyone could become enlightened through their own practice, what did that mean for the authority of the powerful temples and their hierarchies? What did it mean for the government that relied on these religious institutions to maintain social order? Today we might not face exile or execution for sharing this practice, but we still face resistance. People might think we're strange, naive, or following a cult. They might dismiss us without really listening. Some might become genuinely angry, feeling we're bothering them or trying to convert them. This is the challenge we face when we speak up about something we know can help others. We must find the balance between being persistent and being respectful, between courage and wisdom. The key is understanding our motivation. Are we sharing this practice because we genuinely want to help others, or are we trying to prove something? Are we coming from a place of compassion, or are we trying to validate our own beliefs? When our motivation is pure, our actions naturally become more effective. We can speak with conviction without being aggressive. We can be persistent without being pushy. We can plant seeds without demanding immediate results. In The Gift of Rice, Nichiren Daishonin wrote about the tremendous benefit that comes from introducing even one person to this practice. He compared it to the merit of building temples and making offerings, saying that helping someone connect with the mystic law is the highest form of offering. This teaching reminds us why it matters to speak up, even when it's difficult. We're not just sharing information, we're offering people a way to transform their lives fundamentally. The prophecy we bestow through sharing Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is ultimately the prophecy that each person can become happy. Not happy in some distant future after death, but happy in this life, with all its challenges and complications. This is why the teaching remains relevant across centuries and cultures. The human desire for meaning, purpose, and happiness is universal. The practice that can fulfill these desires is equally universal, working for anyone willing to try it, regardless of where they start in life.